Good evening, everyone. I'm Suhaib Gasmelbari, Director of Talking About Trees. Special thanks to my dear friend Mahen, to Dora, and to all the team, and to Getty, who introduced me to Mahen. Thank you, Getty. Mahen, you asked me before starting this interview to show a little bit where do I live. I live in a place called Hayal Umda. It's in Umdurman. This is my street, and the house, the blue one, is the house of my grandparents, where I was born, where I grew up, where I spent my first 17 years. Um, so this is it. Let's start the interview. Well, about the first question, about the documentary and fiction in talking about trees. Uh, well, what counts in documentary actually it's to be faithful to the characters, not to betray the characters, not to cheat them, not to change what they are saying into something that they do not believe in, not to manipulate their lives. This is the basic um, ethical engagement in documentary filmmaking. And for me, it's very important because without this ethical engagement, documentary can very fast become kind of voyeurism. Either it's voyeurism, uh, cultural voyeurism, or class voyeurism, and so on. For me, this is not cinema at all. Uh, but at the same time, with this ethical engagement, making a documentary doesn't mean that we don't work the reality, we do not write it, we do not rewrite it. Um, so we are fictionalizing the reality from the moment we put our camera on. We are fictionalizing the reality. Um, and personally, I do not see the barriers between fiction, cinema, and documentary cinema. I think it's all cinema. And my film is a film about the celebration of the love of those four characters of cinema. It's also about their desire. It's not only a film about the history of cinema in Sudan, also. It's a film about the desire of cinema, uh, the attempts of cinema. Um, it's about the films that they made, the images they created, but also about the images they have been dreaming and about since 40 years, and they remain desires, they remain dreams. So it was a difficult question for me in the beginning, how I'm gonna show this part of the invisible, the images who are not there. And they have been kidding and mocking me from the beginning, telling me that I came to make this film 40 years late because they considered that they were more active at that time and they were creating images more than now. Now they're making films, but of course less. Um, and yes, it was a challenge in the beginning, but the fact that it's a film about the celebration of cinema, I felt like I love documentary cinema and fictional cinema, and I believe that today in documentary cinema there's more experimentation and we are more free, maybe because the documentary is less important in the market, in terms of money, I mean. So there is more freedom, there is more experimentation and creation, imagination, and also the fact that I was filming under very difficult conditions without the radiations. Um, of course, that prevented me from having all what I wanted, but also at the same time, um, it created a kind of challenge. I was challenged in every frame and every scene, to think about it twice. And also, fiction was present because we had to invent every time a fictional story in case we get someone annoying us. Why are you filming here or something? Um, filmmakers who are friends since 45 years, they have their language, their references, their jokes. They refer always to cinema. It elevates also the reality. It makes it something very uh, creative, artistic, and poetic, actually. So, of course, I didn't hesitate a moment to use narrative tools. I don't know even why people assign these to fictional cinema. It's much older. It comes from literature, from oral traditions of telling stories, actually. Um, and also, the reality in Sudan is full of fiction. And a work of a documentarist also is to search and to discover this fiction. Our reality in Sudan is very surrealistic. It offers a lot of fiction all the time. Well, I'm quite happy that you asked me this question about the scene of Suleiman um, listening to the discourse of the of the dictator, and then sleeping in front of it, and then comes his lost film, Africa. Uh, I particularly love this scene because it's maybe the only happy end in my film, because his film was found after 30 years. We searched for it for more than 3 years. I was helped by a friend of mine. Her name is Rasha Selti, who was helped by a French researcher. Her name is Gabrielle. And they managed to find the film. This scene counts a lot for me. In the beginning, when they told me that they found the film, my plan was to go to Suleiman's place and to film him, then to tell him that they found the film and to film his reaction. But I was so excited to a point that when I called him, I was so happy, and I directly told him. And it was a great moment, but I missed it. I didn't film it. So I didn't know how I'm going to put this. And I didn't know if it's important to put it after that or no. But the film became very heavy after the screening was prevented, after their discussion, when they say that they are more intelligent, but the others are stronger and they have weapons. And then we see Suleiman watching the dictator making his propaganda, and it felt very heavy. This scene, there is something hidden in it. Sometimes, because of the conditions of the screenings, when the sound is not strong enough, we miss it. Or sometimes when the speakers are closed, we miss this scene. While I worked very much on the sound with the sound editor, with the great sound editor Jamale, and the idea was that when Suleiman sleeps calmly like an angel in front of the TV, we are focused on Suleiman. Behind him, the dictator is blurred. And then Suleiman starts breathing. We start hearing his breath. And it gets stronger and stronger. And slowly, when he exhales, he pushes away the voice of the dictator. And it was kind of a symbolic victory. At that time, it was a difficult time, and there was no hope. Or, of course, there's always hope, but it wasn't a very hopeful year. 2015, the dictator re-elected of course, in an election totally fake, unlike the elections this year in the U.S. and and then he feels strong. His regime is very settled, and it's just 2 years after massacre that they committed against the protesters who went out in the streets in 2013, and it was a moment of joy for me to just by the breath, by the breathing of Suleiman. It says a lot. I don't know exactly. I don't want to explain everything. And then suddenly, just it came naturally that his film should be introduced here, especially that the film talks about the revolutionary Africa. Uh, it starts by children's song, cliche children's song about the stereotypes of Africa. As an African person, when you hear it, you laugh because they put even some animals who do not exist in Africa. And there is a part of it they talk about a Barmalay. A Barmalay is a pirate. Because I grew up a little bit in Russia, and for me it was a little bit like an echo to Bashir, to Omar al-Bashir also, this wicked pirate, and so. Although it's of course very stereotypical, and the intention of Suleiman of putting this in front in the beginning of his film was to counter it later by showing the revolutionary Africa of the 60s and the 70s. Well, about their kindness and humanity towards each other. This is something that I cannot describe with words. Maybe that was my motivation to make the film, to explain it with images and sound. They are the most kind and nice and funny group of friends. And for me, they define their example of friendship in a time where most of the friendships are virtual or based on work or interest. And so um, they know each other since 45 years. They were united by their passion for cinema, but then their friendship became something bigger than cinema. It's art of survival. It's an art of kindness and of humanity. They are very caring to each other, to the injuries of each other. They really affected by what happens to each of them, and very helpful to each other. And I was included in this group after, um, and I benefited from this. The film owes a lot to this. Because of this friendship, um, many obstacles were resolved, many problems were resolved. For example, to film four characters is very difficult, and when we are alone and with one camera, and to motivate four people at the same time, it's very difficult also. But I was profiting from this friendship that they can motivate each other. When one of them gets a little bit depressed or demotivated, then the others push him, and especially Manar. In the group, I had two spies. Suleiman, who introduced me to the group, and he organized really my batem in the group. And then Manar, because Manar, he's kind of the heart of the group, with his laughs, with his jokes. Uh, he can do anything. Sometimes we had shootings, and one of them or two wanted to leave, and they were tired, and so, and I just okay, said okay, I stopped the shooting, and then Manar goes and comes and asks me if I got everything that I wanted, and then I say no, but let them leave, they are tired. And just Manar goes to talk to them. Magically, they are motivated again, and he did this a lot. He was kind of my mother in the during the shooting. Of course, my real mother helped a lot to make the film, to secure the footage, um, and a lot of other things. I owe her a lot. But Manar was very maternal also to me during the shootings, and I think because he saw me doing everything by my own before I was joined with a small team, uh, and he was very tender. He used to check. He realized that I have memory problems. I forget a lot, and he was very happy of that. And he told me, "Ah, okay. Luckily you came. Now I have the second worst memory in the group." And he used to go look after me if I forgot a lens, and many times he would bring the equipment and so. So this, yes, the main motivation of this film, of course, is to show this. It's a film about this philosophy of hope. They are hope philosophers, and of friendship, and of solidarity. Well, the title, talking about trees, it comes from a poem by Bertolt Brecht. Um, uh, to those who born later, or to those who come after us. And it goes, what times are these when a talk about trees is almost a crime because it implies silence about so many horrors, or something like that. I used to hear this sentence from my father when I was a child, describing the, the years of the beginning of the 90s in Sudan after the coup d'etat, um, describing the state of fascism and militarization of the society, and and stayed in my mind since that time. And of course, I read the poem Brecht after, and it was always in my mind till the moment while we were shooting. Manar, there is a scene. He's chatting with Ibrahim on the roof of the cinema, and they're discussing about organizing the screen. And then before he sleeps, he says the same sentence. So directly in my mind, it was the title. The first title, the waiting bench, came from the first time I met Ibrahim Shaddad, and Ibrahim is it's very tricky. When he meets someone, he wants to test the people. He can't, before trusting them, he takes his time to give trust. And he asked me, okay, so you studied cinema in France, and then now you came back to Sudan to make films. And I told him yes. And he responded, okay, so you're committing the same error that we made 40 years ago. And then he went asking me very difficult questions, like, is your family rich? They can produce your films? And I said, no. Do you have any relations with the security services, or the police, or the government? And I said, of course not. So he said, well, now you have two options. Either you go back to France and you make films, love stories, and you get money and you get paid for what you're doing, or you're crazy enough and you come back to Sudan, and we can free a place for you on our waiting bench. Of course, later I discovered that was humor, because they were not on waiting bench, they were active. This is how the story of the film started